what I wanted to begin with was just a little bit of an introduction. We're going to read in one of the, hold on, let me close this. In the second book of Esther, we're going to read in the second chapter, I mean, and it talks about how Mordecai was the son of Yair, the son of Shimei, and the son of Kish. And Kish was a Benjamite. If you remember, the first king that Israel had was King Saul. And King Saul was a Benjamite. And he was disobedient when God told him to destroy all the Amalekites. Remember, we read about that? And he didn't do it. So, but years later, the Amalekites, you remember that the Amalekites were our enemies because they attacked all those who were in the rear as we were leaving Egypt, the women and the children, the elderly, the disabled. And but King Saul, he kept the best, but he kept alive King Agag, and he kept, bless you, he kept the spoils along with the best sheep and the best oxen. But years later, his disobedience affected the Israelites 500 years later when King Agag rose to his royal position in Persia. And a he was an Amalekite, not King Agag. King Agag had a descendant whose name was Haman, and he is the what's the word? Not the hero, the opposite of hero, the
enemy.
The yeah, he's the enemy. He's the one in our story. He's the evil one in the story. So Israel had been captured and taken into Babylon, and then Esther ends up in the palace, and she and Mordecai were Benjamites. So this is like it goes in full circle. What King Saul failed to do as a Benjamite of the tribe of Benjamin, Mordecai and Esther were able to accomplish and their lineage through saving the people of Israel. And not only that, but even King Saul grabbed the plunder, but the Mordecai did not touch any of the plunder. So he turned around what King Saul had done. So we see that God's protective hand covers us over the ages, and we never know how we're going to be used to fix things that were done in the past to hurt us in some way. All right, so why don't we let me share the screen and we can begin reading the story of Esther. Everyone can see that? All right. Miriam, you want to begin? Chapter 1.
Okay. Chapter 1. It was in the days of Ahasuerus, that Ahasuerus, whose empire stretched from India to Ethiopia and was comprised of 127 provinces. In those days, when King Ahasuerus was sitting on his royal throne in the capital of Shushan, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet at his court for all his princes and servants, Persian and Median army commanders, nobles, and provincial governors. Thus he displayed the riches and splendor of his king empire and the pomp and glory of his majesty. The festivities went on for a long time, 180 days. When this period was over, for 7 days, the king gave a banquet for all the people living in the capital of Shushan, to high and low alike, in the court of the gardens of the royal palace. There were white, green, and blue hangings fastened with cords of fine linen and purple thread, to silver rings on marble columns, couches of gold and silver, on a pavement of alabaster, marble, mother of pearl and precious stones. For drinking, there were golden cups of various design and wine in abundance according to the bounty of the king. The royal edict did not, however, make drinking obligatory, the king having instructed all the officials of his household to treat each guest according to the guest's own wishes. Queen Vashti, for her part, gave a banquet for the women in the royal, of the women in the royal Ahasuerus. On the seventh day, when the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Bigtha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abgata, Zetar, and Carcass, the 7 eunuchs in the service to King Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, crowned with her royal diadem, to display her beauty to the people and the princes, since she was very beautiful. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command delivered by the eunuchs. The king was very angry at this, and his rage grew hot. Addressing himself to the wise men who were versed in the law, it being the practice to refer matters affecting the king to expert lawyers and jurists, he summoned Karshana, Shetar, Admata, Tarshish, Meres, Marsena, and Memucan, 7 Persian and Median princes who had privileged access to the royal presence and occupied the leading positions in the kingdom. According to the law, he said, what is to be done to Queen Vashti for not obeying the command of King Ahasuerus, delivered by the officers? In the presence of the king and the princes, Memucan replied, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also all the princes and all the people inhabiting the provinces of King Ahasuerus. The queen's conduct will soon become known to all the women, who will adopt a contemptuous attitude towards their own husbands. They will say, King Ahasuerus himself commanded Queen Vashti to appear before him, and she did not come. Before the day is out, the wives of the Persian and Median princes will be telling everyone of the king's princes what they have heard about the queen's behavior, and that will mean contempt and anger all around. If it is the king's pleasure, let him issue a royal edict to be irrevocably incorporated into the laws of the Persians and Medes, to the effect that Vashti is never to appear again before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to a worthier woman. Let this edict issued by the king be proclaimed throughout his empire, which is great, and all the women will henceforth honor the authority of their husbands, both high and low alike. This speech pleased the king and the princes, and the king did as Memucan advised. He sent letters to all the provinces of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each nation in its own language, ensuring that every husband should be master in his own house.
Let's take a break for 1 minute so we can welcome Mauricio the pirate. Hello, Mauricio. And that is Santi, right? Santi and Samara. All of you are there. Hooray, nice to see you. How are you? Oh my goodness, that's a scary face.
Yeah. He's the one who destroyed the universe. So
Oh no. Good thing we have Queen Esther.
yeah, here is Captain Carter. So Tanti, who is Batman, honoring also Kefir in Ariel. Okay,
Captain America and Batman.
they love Batman. Yeah,
They love Batman. So who is going to be able to read tonight?
I think Pablo and Santi.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Samara, you're not ready yet?
No, not
Samara,
yet.
no lista.
No, aún no, ¿verdad? No está lista para leer.
Okay. Tal vez el año próximo.
Yeah.
¿Sí? Okay. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. I'm going to share the screen and we'll go to the next chapter. Mauricio, you want to read chapter? Pardon, Brian?
Make it a little larger. Enlarge the writing.
Okay. Brian,
Okay.
you want to read this?
I think I read chapter 2, no?
No,
Oh, no, I didn't. Okay.
no, you didn't. Brian, you want to read this page?
All right. A while later, when the king's anger had subsided, Ahasuerus remembered Vashti and how she had behaved and the measures taken against her. The king's servants who ministered to him said a search could be made on the king's behalf for a beautiful young virgins, and let the king anoint commissioners throughout the provinces of his realm to bring all these beautiful virgins to the capital of Shushan, to the harem under the authority of Hagel, the king's eunuch, keeper of the women. Here he will give them whatever they need for enhancing their beauty, and the girl who pleases the king can take Vashti's place as a queen. This advice pleased the king, and he acted it out. Now in the capital of Shushan, there lived a Jew named Mordecai,
Hooray!
Shear, son of Shemi, son of Kish, and the tribe of Benjamin, who with the Yochanan
Here, who had been exiled?
by Nebuchadnezzar, king of the Babylon, and was now bringing up a certain Hadassah, whatever, oh, otherwise called Esther,
Hooray!
daughters, who had lost both father and mother. The girl had a good figure and a beautiful face, and on the death of her parents, Mordecai had adopted her as his daughter.
Yay!
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
That's okay. All right, somebody in the household of the
Hi, Brenda.
Quinteros.
Okay.
Brenda, you take over.
Well,
Okay, if you want. By royal command and decree, a great number of girls were brought to the capital city of Shushan, where they were entrusted to Haggai. Esther, yay, too, was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Haggai, the guardian of the women. The girl pleased him and won his favor. Not only did he quickly provide her with all that she needed for her dressing room and her meals, but he gave her 7 special maids from the king's household and transferred her and her maids to the best part of the harem. Esther,
hey,
had not declared her people nor her country since Mordecai,
hey.
had forbidden her to do so.
Mauricio, you want to continue?
Okay. Mordecai. Woo! Down in front of the courtyard to harem every day to learn how Esther
Yay!
was and how she was being treated. Each girl had to appear in turn before the king after 12 months fixed by the regulation for the woman. This period of preparation was as follows: 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and lotions, commonly used for beauty treatment. When each girl went to the king, she was given whatever she wanted to take with her. Since she then moved to the harem into the royal household, she went there in the evening, and the following morning returned to another harem entrusted to take care of Sagas, the king of the custodian of the concubines. She did not go to the king anymore unless he was particularly pleased with her and called her summoned by name. But when then, but when it was the turn of Esther,
Yay!
the daughter of Abihail, whose nephew Mordecai
Yay!
considered her as his own daughter, to go into the king's presence. She did not ask for anything beyond what had been assigned by Hegai, the king's officer, custodian of the woman. Esther,
Yay!
approval of all who saw her. She was brought to the king in his royal apartments in the tenth month, which is called Tebet, the 7th year of his reign. And the people liked Esther,
Yay.
Yay.
the other woman. None of the other girls found so much favor and approval with him. So he set the royal crown on her head and proclaimed her queen instead of Vashti.
Pablo?
And the king then gave a great banquet. Esther
Yay!
Yay.
Woo!
for all his guests and servants, and he granted a reduction of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts according to the state of the king. When Esther,
Yay.
Woo! Yay!
like the other girls, had been transferred to the second reign, she had not told according to the orders.
Can you come closer to the computer because we can't hear you?
Instructions she continued to follow and she had under her. At this time, Mordecai
Yay!
was seated at the king's gate, and two of the king's eunuchs, big time fresh officers who guarded the door, plotted to assassinate King Ahasuerus. Mordecai
Yay!
came to hear of this and informed Queen Esther,
Yay!
who in turn on Mordecai
Woo!
authority told the king. The matter was investigated and proved to be. The two men were hanged on the tree, and it was written in the book of the Chronicles in the presence of the king.
Good. Santi?
Chapter 3. Shortly afterwards, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman,
Boo.
son of Hamedata the Agagi. He advanced him and set his seat above all his colleagues and other officers of state, and all the royal officials who were at the king's gate both loved and prostrated themselves whenever Haman
Boo.
appeared, for such was the king's command. But Mordecai
Yay!
refused either to bow or to prostrate himself. The officials of the king's gate asked Mordecai,
Yay!
"Why did you transgress the royal command?"
Rhonda?
Day after day, they asked him this, but he took no notice of them. In the end, they reported the matter to Haman to see whether Mordecai was
Yay!
in his attitude, since he had told them that he was a Jew. Haman could see for himself that Mordecai did not bow or prostrate himself in his presence. He became furiously angry, and on being told what people Mordecai belonged to, he thought it wasn't enough to merely get rid of Mordecai. Instead, he made up his mind to wipe out all Mordecai's people, the Jews who are living in Ahasuerus' entire empire.
Jerry? Jerry, are you here with us?
I don't know if I'm
Do you want to read?
Okay.
I can't hear you. Can you turn up your mic?
Yes, you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
just a
can
minute. You
read
hear me?
next. I can read next.
Okay, Richard.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go after Richard. Penny.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Richard.
Okay. In the first month that is the month of King
Nisan.
okay, Nisan of the 12th year of King Ahasuerus. The poor, that is the lot, was cast in Haman's presence to determine the day and the month. The lot falling on the 12th month, which is Adar, Haman said to King Ahasuerus, quote, there is a certain unassimilated nation scattered among the other nations throughout the provinces of your realm. Their laws are different from those of the other nations, and the royal laws they ignore. So it is not in the king's interest to tolerate them. If it pleases a king to sign for their destruction, I am ready to pay 10,000 talents of silver to those who keep charge of the king's business to bring it into the king's treasures, unquote. The king then took the signet ring off the hand and gave it to Haman, son of Hamadatha, the persecutor of the Jews. Quote, keep the money, unquote, he said. And you can have the people too. Do what you like with them, end quote. The royal scribes were therefore summoned for the 13th day of the first month when they wrote out the orders addressed by Haman to the king's satraps, to the governors ruling each province, and to the principal officials of each people, to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language.
Okay, Jerry?
The sound is okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I made it a bit louder. The edict was signed in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with his ring, and letters were sent by runners to every province of the realm, ordering the destruction, slaughter, and annihilation of the Jews, young and old, including women and children, on the same day, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar, and the seizing of their possessions. Copies of this decree, to be circulated as law in each province, were published to the various peoples, so that each might be ready for the day previously mentioned. At the king's command, the runners set out with all speed. The decree was first broadcasted in the capital of Shushan, while the king and Haman gave themselves up to feasting and drinking. Anxiety reigned in the city of Shushan. Chapter 4. When Mordecai learned what had happened, he tore his garments and put on sackcloth and ashes. Then he walked into the center of the city, wailing loudly and bitterly, until he arrived in front of the king's gate, which no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter.
And in every province, no sooner had the royal command and edict arrived than among the Jews there was great mourning and fasting, weeping and wailing, and many lay on sackcloth and ashes. When Queen Esther's officers came and told her she was overcome with grief, she sent clothes for Mordecai.
Ooh, yay.
Put on instead of his sackcloth, but he refused them. Esther
Yay.
then summoned Hatash, an officer whom the king had appointed to wait upon her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai
Yay.
and inquire what was wrong and why he was acting in this way. Hatash went out to Mordecai,
Yay.
city square, and Mordecai
Yay.
told him what had happened to him personally and about the sum of money which Haman had offered to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the edict of extermination published in Shushan for him to show to Esther
Yay.
for her information, with the message that she was to go to the king and implore his favor and plead with him for her people to whom she belonged. Miriam?
Hatach came back and told Esther
Yay!
Yay.
what Mordecai
Yay.
had said, and she replied with the following message for Mordecai.
Yay!
Royal officials and people living in the provinces alike all know that for anyone, man or woman, who approaches the king in the private apartments without having been summoned there, there is only one law. He must die, unless the king, by pointing his golden scepter towards him, grants him his life. And I've not been summoned to the king for the last 30 days.
Brian?
Sorry?
It's Brian's turn.
Oh, okay.
These words of Esther were
Yay.
who sent back the
Yay.
following reply.
Yay.
Suppose that just because you are in the king's palace, you will be the one Jew to escape. No, if you persist on remaining silent at such a time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jews from another place. But both of you and your father's whole family will perish. Who knows? Perhaps you will have. Don't move it, please. On a place for both of you and your father's whole family will perish. Who knows the throne for such a time as his? Then Esther sent.
Yay. Yay.
Yay.
Now in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink a day or night, 3 days. For my part, I and my servants shall keep the same fast, after which I shall go to the king's fight of the law. And if I perish, I perish. Mordecai
Yay.
carried out Esther's instructions.
Yay.
Yay.
Mauricio?
Okay, chapter 5. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. On the third day, Esther
Yay.
took her royal robes and stood in the inner court next to the king's house. And the king sat upon his royal throne in the royal house, over against the entrance of the house. And it was so, when the king saw Esther
Yay.
in the court, that she obtained favor in his sight. And the king held out the golden script that was what? Script, what that was in his hand to Esther.
Yay.
Yay.
Woohoo.
Pablo?
So Esther drew near
Yay.
and touched the top of the scepter. The king said to her, "Tell me what you wish, Queen Esther.
Yay.
Even if it is up to half my kingdom, I will grant it to you." Will it please the king? Esther replied,
Yay.
with amen. The banquet that I have prepared for him. The king said, "Tell Haman so that Esther
Yay.
may have her wish." So the king and Haman
Boo!
Boo.
came to the banquet that Esther
Yay!
had prepared. And during the banquet, the king again said to Esther,
Yay!
tell me your request. I shall grant it to you. Tell me what you want, even if it is up to half my kingdom. It is yours for the asking. Then Esther,
Yay!
my petition and my request is that if I have found favor in the king's eyes, and if it is his pleasure to grant what I asked and to agree to my request, let the king and Haman
Ooh.
the banquet that I intend to give them, and then I shall do as the king says.
Hooray.
Yeah. Oh, no.
All right, who's next? Richard?
I'm back behind the wheel. I just like to, when do we get to comment on the reading?
After we finish. Will you still be in the car?
I'll be somewhere.
Okay, so we let Jerry read then?
But Santi,
Oh, Santi. I thought Santi read. No?
Before,
Sorry. Okay, Santi, go ahead. Sorry, sweetheart.
okay, Haman
Oh,
high spirits that day, but when he saw Mordecai,
Yay!
neither standing up nor at his approach, he felt a burst of anger. He restrained himself, however. Returning home, he sent for his friends and Zeresh, his wife, and boasted to them about his great wealth, his many children, how the king had raised him to a position of honor
Brenda,
and
Hmm?
him over
where
the
does
heads
this
of the
lie time-wise with respect to Daniel?
Brenda, turn your on mute. if
You
you're gonna
can't talk. Can't talk.
Sorry, go ahead, Santi.
I already finished.
Are you finished? We didn't hear. Just read the last few lines again.
Okay. His many children, how the king had raised him to a position of honor and promoted him over the heads of the king's princes and ministers.
Okay, good. All right, who's next? Jerry or Brenda? I don't remember who went first.
Doesn't matter. Jerry can go.
Brenda, go.
All right. What is more, Haman
Oh,
added, Queen Esther
yay!
has just invited me and the king, no one else except me, to a banquet she was giving. And better still, she's invited me and the king again tomorrow. But what do I care about all this when all the while I see Mordecai, yay, the Jew, sitting there at the king's gate? Then Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends said, have a 50-cubit gallows built, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai, yay, hanged on it. Then you can go with the king to the banquet without a care in the world. Delighted with this advice, Haman had the gallows erected.
Okay, Jer.
You can increase it a little bit if you don't mind.
I don't mind at all.
Chapter 6. That night, the king could not sleep. He called for the record book or the chronicles to be brought and read to him. They contained an account of how Mordecai had denounced Bigtan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs serving as guards of the door, who had plotted to assassinate King Ahasuerus, and what honor and dignity the king asked was conferred upon Mordecai.
Yay!
For this. Nothing has been done for him. The gentle-in-waiting replied, Gentlemen. The king then said, who is that outside in the court? At that very moment, Haman had entered the outer court of the private apartments to ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on the gallows, which he had just put up for that purpose. So the king's gentleman in waiting replied, it is Haman out in the court. Bring him in, the king said. And as soon as Haman came in, went on to ask, what is the proper way to treat a man whom the king wishes to honor. Whom, thought Haman, would the king wish to honor, if not me?
Rhonda? Maybe she left. Rhonda, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. So he replied, if the king wishes to honor someone, royal robes should be brought from the king's wardrobe, and a horse from the king's stable, and he should wear a royal crown on his head. The robes and horse should be entrusted to one of the noblest of the king's officers of state, who should then dress the man whom the king wishes to honor and lead him on horseback through the city square, proclaiming before him, this is the way a man shall be treated whom the king wishes to honor. Hurry, the king said to Haman. Take the robes and the horse and do everything you have just said to Mordecai the Jew, who works at the king's gate. Be sure not to leave out anything that you have mentioned. So taking the robes and the horse, Haman dressed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city square, proclaiming before him, this is the way a man shall be treated whom the king wishes to honor.
After this, Mordecai
Yay!
turned to the king's gate, and while Haman went hurrying home dejected and covering his face, he told his wife Zeresh and all his friends what had just happened. His wife Zeresh and his friends Mordecai say, you are beginning to fall. And Mordecai cries, if he is Jewish, you will never get the better of him. With him against you, your fall is certain. While they were still talking, the king's officer arrived in a hurry to escort Haman to the banquet that Esther was giving. King and Haman to Queen Esther's banquet. And this second day, during the banquet, the king again said to Esther, tell me your request, Queen Esther. I shall grant it to you, whatever you wish, even if it's up to half my kingdom. It is yours for the asking. If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, Queen Esther replied, and if it please your majesty, grant me my life. That is my request. And the lives of my people. That is what I want. Okay, who's next? Is it who?
Brian.
Was it Brian? Or Miriam?
Ángel.
Who else is here? Alejandro? Alejandro, you're here? Do you want to read? I guess he's not. Okay. Miriam, I think you were first. Go ahead.
Okay. For we have been handed over, my people and I, to destruction, slaughter, and annihilation. Had we merely been sold as slaves and servant girls, I should not have said anything. But in the present case, it will be beyond the persecutor's means to make good the loss that the king is about to sustain. King Ahasuerus interrupted Queen Esther. Who is this man? He exclaimed. Where is the man who has thought of doing such a thing? Esther replied, the persecutor, the enemy? Why, this wretch Haman. Haman quaked with terror in the presence of the king and queen.
Brian?
And in the rage, the king got up from the ark. Don't move it.
I'm not moving it. Don't yell at me.
I went into the palace garden. Well, Haman, realizing that on his room, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Back from the palace garden into the banquet hall, He found Haman
Ooh.
where Esther was
Yay!
what the king explained is he going to molest the queen in my own palace? The words were scarcely out of his mouth when a veil was thrown over Haman's face.
Boo.
One of the officers said that 50 cubit gallows to which Haman ran up for Mordecai, who spoke up with the king's great advantage, is already at his house. Hang him on it, said the king. So the Haman was hanged on the gallows, connected to Mordecai.
Yay!
Mauricio?
Okay. Chapter 8. That same day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther
Yay!
of Haman, boo, persecutor of the Jews. Mordecai
Yay!
presented the king. Esther,
Yay!
their mutual relationship. The king, who had recovered his signed ring from Haman,
Boo.
and gave it to Mordecai.
Yay!
Gave Mordecai
Yay!
of Haman's boo. To speak,
Yay!
she fell at his feet, weeping and imploring his favor to betray the malice that Haman, the Agagite, had been plotting against the Jews. The king held out the golden scepter. I don't get it.
Scepter.
Scepter. Okay. Okay. To her. Whereupon Esther,
Yay!
if, if such is the king's good pleasure, she said, and if I have found favor before him, if my petition seems proper to him, and if I myself am pleasing to his eyes, may he be released to issue a written revocation of the letter which Haman,
Boo.
Haman that the
Agagite.
Agagite has written, ordering the destruction of the Jews throughout the royal provinces. For how can I look on while my people suffer what is proposed for them? How can I bear to witness the extermination of my relatives?
Okay, Pablo.
The king said to Queen Esther,
Yay!
and to Mordecai,
Yay!
behold, I have given him house to Esther,
Yay!
had him hanged on the gallows, planning to destroy the Jews. You, for your part, write what you please regarding the Jews, in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring. For any edict written in the king's name and sealed with his ring is irrevocable. The royal scribes were summoned at once. It was the 3rd month, the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and Mordecai's
Yay!
order was written to the Jews. The satraps, governors, and principal officials of the provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia, 7 provinces, to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language, and to the Jews in their own script language.
Okay, Santi.
These letters, written in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed with the king's sign, were carried signet ring, were carried by couriers mounted and escorted from the king's own study. In them, the king granted the Jews in whatever city they lived the right to assemble in self-defense with permission to destroy, slaughter, and annihilate,
Annihilate.
sorry, annihilate any armed force of any people or province that might attack them, together with their women and children, and plunder their possessions, with effect from the same day throughout the provinces of King Ahasuerus, the 13th day of the 12th month, which is Adar. Copies of the edict to be broadcast as law in each province were published to the various people, so that the Jews could be ready on that day, stated to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers mounted on the king's forces set out in great haste and urgency at the king's command. The edict was also published in the capital of Shushan. Mordecai, yes, present, now princely gown of violet and white, with a great golden crown and a cloak of fine linen and purple. The city of Shushan shouted for joy. For the Jews there was light and gladness, joy and honor. In every province and in every city, whatever the king's command and decree arrived, there was a joy and gladness among the Jews, with feasting and holiday making. Of the country's population, many became Jews, since now the Jews were feared.
Hooray. Chapter 9. Brenda?
Chapter 9. The king's command and decree came into force on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, and the day on which the enemies of the Jews had hoped to crush them produced the very opposite effect. The Jews it was who crushed the Jews it was the Jews who crushed their enemies. That's written wrong.
I'll fix that.
In their towns throughout the provinces of the king. The Jews assembled to strike at those who had planned to injure them. No one resisted them, since the various peoples were now all afraid of them. Provincial princes, satraps, governors, and royal officials all supported the Jews for fear of Mordecai. Yay! And indeed, Mordecai was a power in the palace, and his fame was spreading throughout all the provinces. Mordecai steadily growing more powerful. So the Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, with resulting slaughter and destruction, and worked their will on their opponents. In the capital of Shushan alone, the Jews put to death and slaughtered 500 men, notably Parshandatha, Dalphon, Aspatha, Poratha, Adalia, Aridatha, Parmashtha, Arisai, Aridai, and Jezatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the persecutor of the Jews. But they took no plunder. The number of those killed in the capital of Shushan was reported to the king that same day.
Jerry?
Yes, I have to unmute. Thank you. The king said to Queen Esther,
Yay!
in the capital of Shushan, the Jews have killed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman. What must they have done in the other provinces of the realm? Tell me your request. I grant it to you. Tell me what else you would like. It is yours for the asking. If such is the king's pleasure, Esther replied, let the Jews of Shushan be allowed to enforce today's decree tomorrow as well. And as for the 10 sons for Haman, let their bodies be hanged on the gallows. Whereupon the king, having given the order, the edict was promulgated in Shushan, and the 10 sons of Haman were hanged. Thus, the Jews of Shushan reassembled on the 14th day of the month of Adar and killed 300 men in the city. But they took no plunder. The other Jews who lived in the king's provinces also assembled to defend their lives and rid themselves of their enemies. They slaughtered 75,000 of their opponents, but they took no plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar. On the 14th day they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But for the Jews of Shushan, who had assembled on the 13th and 14th days, the 15th was the day they rested, making that a day of feasting and gladness.
Therefore, Jewish country people, those who live in undefended villages, keep the 14th day of the month of Adar as a day of gladness, feasting, and holiday making, and the exchanging of presents with one another. Mordechai
Yay!
committed these events to writing. Then he sent letters to all the Jews living in the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, enjoining them to celebrate the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar every year as the days on which the Jews had rid themselves of their enemies, and the month in which their sorrow had been turned into gladness, and their mourning into a holiday. He therefore told them to keep these days of festivity and gladness when they were to exchange presents and make gifts to the poor. Who do we end? I think this is the end. No, we still go on. Rhonda? Or who didn't read?
Once having begun, the Jews continued observing these practices. Mordecai, having written them an account of how Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the persecutor of all the Jews, had plotted their destruction and had cast the pur, that is, the lot of their overthrow and ruin. But how he went back to the king to ask him to order the hanging of Mordecai, the wicked scheme which he had devised against the Jews recoiled on his own head, and both he and his sons were hanged on the gallows. And that hence these days were called Purim, from the word pur. And so because of what was written in this letter, and because of what they had seen for themselves, and of what had happened to them, the Jews willingly bound themselves, their descendants, and all who should join them to celebrate these 2 days without fail, in the manner prescribed and at the time appointed, year after year, thus commemorated and celebrated from generation to generation in every family, in every province, in every city. These days of Purim shall never be abrogated among the Jews, nor will their memory perish from their people. Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, wrote with full authority to ratify this second letter and sent letters to all the Jews of the 127 provinces of the realm of Ahasuerus in terms of peace and loyalty, enjoining them to observe these days of Purim at the appointed time, as Mordecai the Jew had recommended, and in the manner prescribed for themselves and their descendants, with additional ordinances for fast and lamentation. The ordinance of Esther fixed the law of Purim, which was then recorded in a book.
Miriam? Miriam?
Oh, did you say my name?
I did.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm deaf. King Ahasuerus put not only the mainland under tribute, but the Mediterranean islands as well. All his feats of power and valor, and the account of the high honor to which he raised Mordecai.
Yes.
All this is recorded in the book of Ananias of the kings of
The annals.
Media and Persia. And Mordecai, the Jew, was next in rank to King Ahasuerus. Ahasuerus. He was a man held in respect among the Jews, esteemed by thousands of his brothers, a man who sought the good of his people and cared for the welfare of his entire people. Purim Sameach.
Purim Sameach.
Purim Sameach. Yay! Woohoo! Good job, guys.
That was great. Good reading, everybody. Good. Sorry. Santi and Pablo, your English has improved so much. Now you read better than your father, but don't tell him I told you that. You did very well. Oh, look at Jeanette. Ah! Oh my God, it's scary.
Quiero verla.
Ah, wow. And who's that?
Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I see you twice.
I am
thought it
looking
was
for
somebody
my
else.
camera. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. All right, let's sing there's a few little songs here that we can sing. Hold on. Let me go back here. There's a few songs. This we know. Even if we can all sing together, and even if we can't hear. Hag Purim, Hag Purim, Hagadol Hayeladim, Masechot, Rashadim, Perot Verikudim, Havarisha, Rash, 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 Havarisha, Rash, 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 Havarisha, Rash, 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 Baharashanim, Hag Purim, Hag Purim, Hagadol Hayeladim, מחמדים, ממתקים, תפונים ומגדנות. הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, הבה נרישה רש רש רש, בהרשני. Purim day, blessed joyous holiday. Happy throngs, singing songs, mask and dancing gay. Havanarisha, Maharashani. Purim day, present giving holiday. Home and passion to eat, cake and candy sweet. Havanarisha, rush, rush, rush. Havanarisha, rush, rush, rush. Havanarisha, rush, rush, rush. Baharashanim, Baharashanim, Baharashanim. When you hear the name of Esther, shout hooray, hooray! When you hear the name of Esther, shout hooray!
Hooray!
When you hear the name of Esther, when you hear the name of Esther, when you hear the name of Esther, shout
Hooray!
When you hear the name Haman, shout
Boo!
When you hear the name Haman, shout
Boo!
When you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, when you hear the name Haman, shout
Boo!
When you hear the name of Mordechai, clap your hands. When you hear the name of Mordechai, clap your hands. When you hear the name of Mordechai, when you hear the name of Mordechai, when you hear the name of Mordechai, clap your hands. When you hear the name Achashverosh, shout hooray!
Hooray!
Hear the name Achashverosh, shout hooray!
Hooray!
When you hear the name Achashverosh, when you hear the name Achashverosh, when you hear the name Achashverosh, shout hooray!
Hooray!
Now this song is a perfect song for right now. Just as the story of Esther is perfect for right now, all we have to do is change the name Haman to Hamas, and it's just as real today as it was back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
The plans of our enemies shall come to nothing. They can speak all the words they want, but they shall not stand because of Emmanuel. God dwells with his people. God is with us.
Amen.
Janet, canta.
Sí.
Usuesa de tu far, da bruda barbelo yaku. Usuesa de tu far, da bruda barbelo yaku ki Emmanuel. Usuesa de tu far, da bruda barbelo yaku ki Emmanuel. Continue.
The plans of our enemy shall fail. The plans of our enemy shall fail. They shall speak and they shall plan, but they shall not succeed for our God. God is with us. They shall plan, they shall speak, but they shall not succeed for our God is Emmanuel.
Usul sapetu far, da bruta vardello yakun. Usu sapetu far, da bruta vardello yakun ki Emmanuel. Usu sapetu far, da bruta vardello yakun ki Emmanuel.
Manuel, Dios es con nosotros.
Amen.
God is with us. And this is a beautiful, beautiful Psalm 121. When fear raises its ugly head, we turn to Psalm 121. Sari es Salmos 121. Hineloyanu.
Salmo 121.
Sí, 121. I lift my eyes to the hills, from where does my help come? Hineloyanu velo lo yanu velo yishan. Hineloyanu velo yishan. Shomer Israel. He
Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps.
slumbers nor sleep, slumbers nor sleep. He did keep in Israel, neither slumbers nor
sleeps, slumbers nor sleeps.
Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which shall never be removed and shall remain forever. As the mountains are around Jerusalem, so the Lord is round about, round his people here. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, lo yanum velo yishan. Hine lo yanum velo yishan, shomer Israel. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of good lessons from this story. It's amazing how things always come back to us. There's an expression in Hebrew called midat kineged midat, measure for measure. Haman had them build a gallows for Mordecai, and he got hung on the gallows along with his 10 sons. King Saul was not obedient to God, did not listen to Samuel, and he did not kill all the Amalekites the way he was asked to do. 500 years later, one of the descendants of King Agag was Haman.
Yep.
Tried to murder. And even Arafat, the leader of the PLO, said that he was an Amalekite. Imagine. Right up to today, we have this circle. And it's interesting, as I said in the beginning, that it's what King Saul, who was a Benjamite, what he did wrong, Mordecai and Esther, who are also from the tribe of Benjamin, they made it right. So everything came in full circle.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Now, I think, I don't know, Richard, you want to say something before you asked me if you could say something. Did you want to do that now?
I'm just parking at my house now. It'll take me about 5 minutes to gather my thoughts.
Okay.
But wait, hold on a second. About the Amaleks. and Yasser and
Yasser Arafat?
yeah. See, here's the thing. My understanding of the way that Amalek's treated and saw the Israelites, the children of Israel, the children of Israel didn't do anything wrong. They weren't that strong. They weren't mighty. They had no guilt. But yet these enemies attacked them. So, come in the mind of Yasser Arafat, he thought he had a claim to be righteous. Okay, and he saw the modern state of Israel as being blameworthy. I mean, that's extremely debatable, and it's certainly simplistic. But the Amalekites, I think I'm pronouncing it right, had no cause of action against the children of Israel.
No, it was simple sinat chinam, free hatred without a reason. And we see that all over the world today.
Now, so far as my broadcasting is concerned, except I'll still be listening.
Okay. Mauricio, did you want to add something?
I just want to say that today we're talking about activity.
I can't hear you. I don't know why you keep cutting out.
Okay, now you hear me better?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to share what I sent them today in the family. Okay. So,
no, there's like every second word is I can't hear it. I don't know what's wrong. You're talking about your message for Shabbat?
Okay. No, I'm not talking. Just hold on. Now, do you hear me better?
Let's see her. Try.
Okay. Okay, good. I wrote to my kids in the group of the family.
No, it's worse now. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Peggy, does it matter if he puts on original sound or not?
Better?
No, it sounds like it's muffled. Is it the same one that you usually use?
Yeah.
Are you on original?
No.
That's good.
Now,
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Good. I wrote to my kids today in the morning. I want to share this to you.
Okay.
It says, to all, that you have a great and beautiful festivity of Purim. This is a festival in which God saved Esther, Mordecai, and all Israel from the destruction of the, how do you say that in English, malvado? Cruel Haman, okay? Even that God is not mentioned in this book, we learn that sometimes in the life, apparently, God is not there or he has forgotten from us. But even if he is hidden, he always shows us his salvation in different areas of the life, like in health, work, or job, strength, or happiness. Hag Sameach. So
This is very important for today because sometimes we in some moments in our life, sometimes it seems that God is not there because there is no answer, there is no hope, there is terrible news, or sometimes it's just that we feel alone. I don't know if you have feel alone sometimes in your life, but I
Like
have
everybody
felt,
has.
yeah.
Everybody,
So,
yeah.
but at those moments, remember that God is always there. He's there to protect you. He's there to hear you. He's there just to give you a hand. Okay, you're doing good. Okay, keep going. So that is the message. That is the most important thing. Okay, from this festivity. And so Hag Sameach to all of you.
Amen. To all. Yes, and let's not worry with all the craziness that we see going on in the world, because God's plan will come through no matter what. We will see him, and we see him in our lives and how he's working. Does anyone have anything they want to add as a message for Purim?
I'm just going to add something, Peggy,
Yes, Jerry.
if I may, and excuse me if it doesn't. So just Mauricio, I just want to echo what you said, and I'm like a newcomer here, but God does these things, and one of the things that I think that God is giving us, he's loving us. He loves us, and he's giving us love. And this group here as well, I find that we share love, and I think that's important.
Thank you, Jerry. That's beautiful. Mauricio, do you want to just say a few words to poor Sari, who's here the whole time listening to us in English, and to
Ok, Sari. Les decía a ellos de que les había escrito a mis hijos un mensaje hoy en la mañana referente a la festividad de Purim, y lo que les ponía era que tengan una linda fiesta de Purim. Es la fiesta en que Dios salvó a Esther, Mordejai y a Israel de la destrucción del malvado Amán. A pesar de que Dios no se menciona en este libro, aprendemos que a veces en la vida aparentemente Dios no está ahí o se ha olvidado de nosotros, pero realmente, aunque Él esté oculto, siempre nos muestra su salvación en diversas áreas de la vida, como salud, trabajo, fuerzas o alegrías. Hag Sameach.
Ay,
Así
qué
que
bonito.
lo que
Gracias
les
por
decía a ellos
compartirlo.
que no importa, hay momentos en la vida que nos sentimos solos, literalmente, solitos,
Ujú.
hay un silencio divino ahí, pero ahí hay que saber que ahí está Dios para protegerte, para cuidarte, para decirte, ella está haciendo las cosas bien, y sencillamente es de tener la fe suficiente como para poder saber que Dios nos protege en todo momento.
Amen.
Amén.
Yes, Richard.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm extremely interested in how meals and celebration show up in our writings. I started to become interested in that, reading that portion in Genesis where Isaac sent his servant to find a wife for his son, and the son, and to make a long story short, the servant did not take the offer of food before he told of his mission. And that has been used by Orthodox Jews to fast before a wedding ceremony. But there's also places in the Torah where feasts are kind of a tranquilizer to tranquilize people before doing something unpleasant. Here it's carrots set up as a fiesta celebration. So I just wanted to weave that in there too. I need to leave, ladies and gentlemen. So Chag Sameach, happy Purim. I'll see you Saturday morning. All right.
It's good to see
Saturday
you.
morning, my
Chag
time.
Sameach.
Okay,
Okay.
Richard, you identify as a cow today, and we accept you as you are.
Yeah, well, someone has to accept me as I am. Okay. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
Richard.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. This was wonderful as it possibly could be on Zoom. Trisha, Patricia, it's wonderful to see you in the dark, but at least we've seen you a little bit. We haven't seen you in a long time. So
Okay,
I
I
hope,
just want to tell you that
yes.
I cannot comprehend how these triangular cookies are seems to be an ear. Okay,
Or a
I
hat.
tried,
Some say
but
it's the hat of Haman.
no, not really. I mean the cookies that you eat. Okay, because here in Salvador we have this one.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
right.
really,
Palmier. That's
yeah,
how
that
ears.
seems more to
Yeah.
be an ear.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes. Yeah.
but
But
not triangular.
I think the Homentashen is the hat of Haman.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
probably.
Have you ever tried to make them?
But really,
No?
we
They're
don't.
delicious. They're really delicious.
I think they are delicious. We
Yeah.
have something that are similar that is called pichardin. Pichardin in Spanish. I don't know what does it mean, but that's how they call.
Oh,
But for
good.
us, orejitas, which means little ear,
Literally.
okay, are this one that I show you that are
Okay.
really big.
Yeah. We call them palmier.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're delicious. Oh, yeah.
All
Well,
right. I'm going to go, everybody. It was nice.
we're all going now.
Purim.
Thank you.
Thank
Purim
you, Peggy.
Sameach.
Thank you,
All the
everybody.
best.
You're welcome, and have a
Chag
wonderful
Sameach.
Purim celebration. And Shabbat
Yeah.
Shalom.
Yeah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Bye.
Shalom.
shalom.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao. Bye, Jerry. Bye.